I'm retired, but I was a pipe organ technician and an organist both. I became an organist as having a good piano background and had played piano for many years, and then I took some organ lessons, but it has evolved from playing for church for about 50 years. Most organists are pianists originally because you need a good background in music and in keyboard and the fundamentals, and then you can go on to organ. There are some that have only played organ, but mostly you have a piano background.
I am president of the William H. Bauer Foundation, which was incorporated to restore this beautiful organ to its former glories. I have been here for 44 years, dealing with trying to keep this organ going, and I imagine we have done a pretty good job. I have played the organ since I was 12, and I got my first church job at the age of 13. And this year is my 50th anniversary as being a church organist. I took several years of piano lessons, which I was told I had to do before I could play organ. And because at age 5, I had decided I wanted to play the organ. But they said, well, you have to take piano. So I took piano until I was 12. Then I started organ lessons at the preparatory department at U of L with Margaret Dickinson, and took with her through high school, and then I went to U of L and studied with her husband Melvin Dickinson to get my church music and organ performance degree.
I'm the worship and music director for St. James Catholic Church in Louisville and St. Bridget Catholic Churches in Louisville, and I'm the organist for St. James Catholic Church. I became an organist and began playing the organ in 8th grade because I was the tallest kid in the 8th grade class. They would send me in to put up hymn numbers before we would have the children's liturgy. One time I was putting up the hymn numbers and I decided to sit down at the little electronic organ in the church and try to make some sounds on it. I had played piano in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, but had quit, and but got fascinated with the organ, and got caught as I was playing the organ that day, playing a few chords. And I was told then that since I was obviously an organist, I was now the organist for the children's liturgy, and I would start the following week. So I had to very quickly up my game and grab some lessons real quick from the organist of our church. And then I began playing the organ for some of the liturgies. I then went on in high school to study piano at University of Louisville in the preparatory department. And then as I pursued a bachelor's of arts in humanities and then a Master of Science in Business, I studied organ, choral conducting, music theory, piano, all through undergrad and graduate school. So while I came out with degrees that were not necessarily in music, though I did pursue musical studies all through undergrad and graduate school.
I am a pipe organ technician. I own Ruppert Pipe Organ Company, LLC. I moved to Louisville to work for a company who built organs, Steiner Rec. And I worked there for 2 years, left the industry, and then got a job at Miller Pipe Organ Company, which is organ technicians. They didn't strictly build organs from scratch like Steiner Rec did. What we did was we tuned organs, repaired organs, rebuilt organs, made additions to organs.
The organ means to me different than some people because I've seen the inside of it as well as the outside, and being able to use it and play it, it brings great joy to hear it, not only, especially somebody else playing it other than myself, because I don't like to hear myself play, but there's a fullness of it, especially with some types of music that makes me feel very moved.
The organ means much to me because my artistic and musical expression is usually expressed through this pipe organ and the literature that goes with it, and playing the hymnody and leading people in worship and song. The organ is a gigantic part of my identity as a professional musician. It's the means by which I can minister to people at weddings or at funerals, at these very important times of their lives, times of either loss or times of great joy. So from that standpoint, the organ is very much a part of me. and it becomes a medium for my expression, sometimes my expression of my faith. So it's probably, I can't hardly picture my life without the pipe organ as a part of it.
The fixing of it, the knowing how to fix it. You know, it's not like a Ford car where most Ford cars, they're all the same. You can go in and if you can fix one, you can pretty much fix them all. In this, even the same company through 100 years of existence may have changed different things about how they build the organ. So almost every organ that I go to is different in some way. And so that challenge of trying to figure out what's wrong with the organs and fixing them is really my interest in them.
The organ, playing the organ makes me happy. It fulfills my soul to hear these sounds, playing the wonderful literature that's been written for this instrument. I enjoy sharing that music with others, and it's my happy place to go to.
I think that there's things about pipe organs that people don't know that if they were asked or told, they would be totally surprised. One of the things about them is that there's so much handmade and hours and sweat and hard work to make them, that not only they are a piece of a musical instrument, they're also a very piece of craft and workmanship.
The tuning of the instrument, you can have anywhere from the smallest organ that I tune has, less than 200 pipes. The largest organ that I tune, we're talking thousands of pipes. And these are all these pipes are affected by temperature. So anytime that there is a temperature change, when you go from using the heating system to using the air conditioning system, the organs need to be tuned just to bring them back to tune with themselves, not really in tune with any other instrument, just so that they sound well together.
Unlike a trumpet player who has his or her instrument and they bring it wherever they go, it's their trumpet. Everywhere I go to play the organ, it's going to be a different instrument, different size, different tonal appointments, maybe a different number of keyboards, a different acoustic. So we live and die by Post-it notes to put on our scores that we can then remove when we go to another church or another venue with a pipe organ that has a different set of tonal arrangements that, like I said, that we would have to mark down. And your memory is not good enough to do this. You have to write it down.
It depends on the design of the sanctuary. Some people don't want to see pipes, others do, but mostly a lot of organs are kind of hidden behind grill cloth, and we'll have a few pipes out to see, so they go, oh, it's a pipe organ, but the majority of the instruments are kind of, hidden away in other parts of the building. We have a unique situation here is the organ is in all four corners of the room. There are 4 rooms with pipes in it, and so we had quadraphonic sound before the term quadraphonic even existed.
Because of what's going on in many churches with what we call the hum and strum, which is really the contemporary worship with guitars and drums and keyboards, I'm seeing a decline in the use of the pipe organ, and I know that they're still being built every day and they're being repaired every day, but I feel that they're slightly in an endangered species.
Well, I think the future of the pipe organ can be very bright. I believe that there is now more than there has been, at least in a number of years, a real desire to have real things in church, things made out of real material. Not faux wood, but wood. Not faux marble, but real marble. Actual stained glass in windows. I think there's at least some feeling that that is of value now, and that immediately would then play into the pipe organ, which can be a band unto itself in contemporary music. It can join with other instruments. It can play classical literature. It can certainly render hymns of any style. And a good pipe organ is an investment not for 10 years, 20 years, half a century. It's an investment for 100 years or better. Evidenced by the instrument that I'm playing here, that was originally built in 1885, was put in this church, used in 1914, was rebuilt in 1931, and is still playing away as we speak in 2020.
I would say 95% of the organs, in the world are in churches, because it was originally conceived as an instrument to accompany worship and all. But then with the advent of silent movies and theater organs, then organs began popping up in movie theaters. And in towns around the turn of the century, places like Louisville that didn't have a symphony orchestra, they would have a municipal auditorium where people would go for concerts. And oftentimes there would be an organ in there, and people would come in and play symphonic transcriptions. And that would sometimes be the only exposure to classical music people would have in these small towns, as they would hear orchestral pieces on the organ. And this is an orchestral organ like that too. We're lucky that it's still in its original building and its original condition. And a lot of these instruments have been lost.
It's fairly common for these companies to go out of business. A lot of times they're in business for many, many years. Steiner Reck, Gottfried, the Reck part of Steiner Reck took over from Ferris Steiner. So Ferris started building organs in the early 70s. Gottfried took over in the 80s, I believe, and they shut down the late 90s, early 2000s. For an individual small company like that, those companies go out of business because no one is going to take them over. It's owned by a specific builder or a specific person, and then when he gets tired or doesn't want to be in the business anymore, he has to shut the business down. Larger companies, larger family companies, like there's a company in Ohio called Shantz, they've been around since the late 1800s. And that's a family-owned business, so members of the family keep the business going. If someone in that family doesn't want to do it and no one is willing to buy the company, then it will shut down. A lot of times too, organ companies fail because they get too big. If you have hundreds of employees that you have to keep busy and you don't have any new contracts, you have to lay people off.
I became an organist because I really liked the organ. For church music, I feel that an organ is much better than a piano. It's part of a church building. It's a living instrument. Even though I love piano and it was my first instrument, the organ is really what is church music, and good classical organ music. It needs to be a pipe organ.
Unlike most instruments, the organ is very much identified with one place, and that's generally houses of worship. It's sort of unfortunate because it does have an entire secular concert repertoire for it that can be rendered whether it's in the sacred environment or whether it's in a secular concert hall. But again, I can't think of any other instrument, trumpets, flutes, guitars, whatever, that are wedded to one connotation, one place, and in this case an ecclesial place, a church.
They envision the little old lady playing organ at church. They don't think about the concert possibilities of it and the entertainment possibilities of it. And with silent movies kind of getting a resurgence of interest these days, the organ's getting a lot more work out in movie theaters because people are starting to run the old silent films again, and they're very popular.
I hope everyone enjoys listening to a pipe organ, even if it's only on occasion, and realizes how much work it takes not only to play them, but to learn to play them, but also to keep them maintained and to have been made originally.
The organ does not need to be considered just a church instrument. It is a very versatile instrument that can play all types of music. This organ's got drums and bells and cymbals and things like that, and some organs have even more of those. So you can play all types of music, even current, music of today can be played by, good artists that know how to arrange that kind of music. So the organ is there's nothing like it in the world. There is no sound like it, not even synthesizers or anything can duplicate the sound of wind-blown pipes. And this is something that just needs to continue on forever.